Halo pemirsa, saya Eksklusif, jurnalis dari Kompas.com. Sekarang saya lagi ada di venue-nya Festival Kreatif Tahunan ideafest 2017 di Jakarta Convention Center. Nah, jadi ideafest ini dihadiri oleh banyak banget pembicara terkemuka, baik dari dalam maupun luar negeri. Salah satunya adalah Brule. Brule ini adalah pendiri sekaligus editor-in-chief atau pemimpin redaksi dari Majalah Monocle. Majalah Monocle meraih sukses sebagai majalah di tengah-tengah serbuan digital. Nah, kita nanti akan coba untuk tanya kepada Mr. Brule tentang rahasianya, apa sih yang bikin Monocle itu bisa sukses di era digital. Terus kita juga akan sedikit nanya-nanya juga soal pandangan dia tentang era digital sekarang ini. Nah, sekarang kita akan nanya langsung ke Mr. Brule tentang gimana rahasia sukses Monocle dan pandangan dia tentang era digital. Yuk, kita jalan sekarang. Oke, jadi pemirsa Kompas.com, seperti yang tadi saya bilang, sekarang saya sudah bersama dengan Mr. Brule, pendiri, founder, sekaligus editor-in-chief dari Majalah Monocle yang bisa sukses sebagai majalah di era digital. Nah, kita akan menggali lebih dalam soal kiprah Monocle dan pandangan Mr. Brule secara umum di dunia online. Oke, kita langsung aja mulai. Oke, Mr. Brule, did I say your name right?
Yes.
Brule? Okay. So, this is your first time in Indonesia, or have you been in?
No, I've been like maybe my 12th time to Indonesia. So,
12 times.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm intrigued about your magazine, Monocle. You started out in 2006, if I remember correctly. That was also the time when digital started to take off. So what inspired you to publish a magazine instead of, say, an online portal? Why did you choose to publish a magazine in the first place?
I guess it was pure opportunity. I think we saw lots of people launching portals and talking about their platforms, and it already, in 2006, 2007, seemed like it was a crowded market. So what were you going to be able to do different? So at a time when people were demobilizing from print and they were moving away from print, it seemed to me there was an opportunity. And the opportunity for us, though, was to go against how maybe Time or Newsweek or Fortune and lots of international news titles work, where they have an Asia edition, they have an American edition, they have a European edition. We said, let's do one magazine for the whole world. That if you buy this magazine and you live in Jakarta, or you're living in Taipei, or you're living in Zurich, you get the same magazine. And that means it was one conversation with one advertiser, because that advertiser could have one conversation then with one reader, and also with one publisher. And that is something which I think we've seen the market step by step realize, that there is a global traveling international consumer. There is someone who lives in Indonesia who has to go and do business in Singapore 3 times a year. They have to go down to Sydney. And I think for a global constituency, for 82,000 people every month who buy the magazine, they see that Monocle is that source that also takes them around the world, that shows them ideas, that introduces them and inspires them about business opportunities, political opportunities, design opportunities. And that's the opportunity that we saw back in 2006.
Is that also the recipe behind the various theme of the magazine? You know, you talk about foreign bureaucracy, and then you also talk about lifestyle. And there's a certain formula behind that.
No, I wouldn't say there's a specific formula. People often say that, oh, we're quite original, but I think, look, Compass does it every day. I mean, you pick up a newspaper like Compass, you're doing sport, you're doing business, you're doing world affairs, you're doing style, and we're the same. It's just that there's very few magazines tend to be more specialized, and so. But I think in many ways our behavior is much more like a magazine. Pardon me. Let me start that again. I think in many ways our behavior is much more like a newspaper. And that, obviously we have a point of view about things, we have a political stance on things, but we're looking at a variety of topics and a variety of sectors.
And Monocle also known for its aversion to social media. Is that still true today?
I think that we have a healthy skepticism about social media. I think if you are running an ice cream shop, or if you're running a pet salon, then I think social media is probably a great tool for you. If you're a media company, you're competing with other media companies. Social media companies, the word media is in them. And I think one of the problems is that most other media companies say, oh, these are great free platforms for us to go out to. People it'll raise awareness. That hasn't happened. We see media in so many sectors in decline. And who's made that happen? The other media companies. It's been the BBC, it's been the New York Times, it's been everybody pushing people to Twitter, pushing people to Facebook. And oftentimes those people don't come back. That's the problem. And I think, it's great, as I said, if you want to raise awareness and you're not in competition with Twitter, but we are in competition with Twitter. They're looking for the exact same advertisers that Compass is looking for, that Monocle is looking for. And not every day, but oftentimes they're winning. And so if we don't come to the realization that these companies are not our friends, they're our competitors, I think a lot of media companies, traditional and otherwise, aren't going to be around.
Okay, speaking of competition, I don't know if it's happening elsewhere in the world, but here in Indonesia, advertisers are becoming increasingly reliant on social media. They use influencers in social media to target their audience. Since you've been around the world, do you see this trend happening elsewhere? And what do you think about it?
Well, I think the trend is one of globalization and one of course, big advertising companies and their buying agencies only relying on data. So everyone wants proof that if I'm posting a bit of custom media on a newspaper's website, that I can track all of the clicks and hopefully I can follow it through to transaction. But I think as we've seen, there's so much which is made up. I mean, constantly again and again we hear about, of course, inflated numbers, so many companies in trouble over this, because, and are we surprised in a way? Of course not. Companies want to make sure that if they promise to an advertiser they're going to get X amount of traffic, then they're just going and buying clicks as a result. So it's not something which is confined to Indonesia. It is a trend everywhere. I think we need to get back to a place that the publisher, the editors, are out meeting the readers. They're not sort of sitting. I mean, how many newsrooms do you go into today and you see a massive wall of monitors and it shows the trend of how many people are reading at one moment? But does anyone know who those people are? Has anyone met them? No. Because everyone's actually just watching a screen rather than actually sitting down and having a conversation like we're having.
Growing startup with sort of idealism of a idealistic journalist while still having people willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? If you have any tips for?
If I had an answer to that, I'd be a very wealthy man. I think that but I understand the question. I think everyone is struggling with this right now. I don't think there's an answer. I don't think we can go to New York right now and have a discussion with Mr. Thompson at the New York Times and find the golden answer from him. Nor can we go to the Asahi Shimbun in Tokyo and have a conversation with them. I think that Compass is not alone, nor are your competitors in trying to figure this out.
Because in Indonesia, some online digital media start from free, and the leading one is free. Everything, look at them. Like
that's maybe the cultural thing in Indonesia.
No, I think that free media is everywhere. I mean, I think that you get free newspapers on the subway in Paris or London as well. I mean, that is I think it's part of the landscape. But how much original journalism is there? Not a lot. It's largely it's wire services. It's AP. It's Agence France Presse. It's a lot of reader comment. So I think yes, there's plenty of free outlets out there. But either the really good ones are then backed by big responsible media organizations, and then I think you have many others which, if a new newspaper or a new portal comes out the next day, I'm off to go to that one. There's not a lot of loyalty.
The key is still a good journalist there.
Yeah, it's key is good journalism has to be the foundation, and it has to be an originality. I mean, I think right now, I think why does the New York Times continue to rise above everybody else? It's because the New York Times has such an investment in sending correspondents around the world. You will see stories in the cover of the New York Times or page 16 of the New York Times that you're not going to see anywhere else. And I think that's an investment. That costs money. It's not just saying that I'm going to go and run a story from Reuters, because that story from Reuters is going to be everywhere.
Does that mean exclusivity is key?
Exclusivity is key. Access is key. And I think also, I think depth and length. I think right now we're seeing a move to longer form journalism as well. But as we know, I think longer form journalism is better read on paper than endlessly scrolling. It becomes a bit tiring after a while.
Speak about the convergence, and one also wants making videos, and everybody else, like we do from Kompas.com,
Of course,
making videos.
Sure.
So what do you think about this convergence trend in the future? Is it going to work?
Yes, I think you could say, is the BBC as an example, are they doing well? They've got multiple radio stations. They have one of the most important digital platforms. They have a television network. Okay, they don't have a print business, but yes, I mean, you could say in their case it works. But I think, let's say we were talking about the New York Times or someone like The Economist. They've got quite read websites and they've got print editions. I'm not sure that the New York Times yet has built up a video franchise that, do I feel I have to go to the New York Times to look at it? Probably not. It's not yet. The same with The Economist. As much as I love The Economist, I don't feel I have to go watch The Economist videos. I go look at their website to read it. I go to the magazine to read it. But I'm not there so much to listen. I'm not so much there to watch. So I think it's still debatable. Some people are doing it well, but I don't think you can say it's the prevailing trend that's going to work for everyone.
Does that depend on each style of the publication? The Economist, New York Times, different styles?
Well, I think it's also where you come from. I think what the question you're asking is, can you be good at everything? And I think it's very, very difficult to be a master of many platforms. I think you have to choose your battles. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you very much. Thank you.